Let's install PyData onto my OS using Visual Studio Code. So what's PyData? So PyData is function calling using AI agents. It's a toolkit for building AI assistants with function calling and connecting large language models to external tools. I'll leave a description below of the GitHub page created by PyData HQ for you to install this locally on your OS. So as you can see here with the chart, it starts out with the user. The user gives a task to the assistant, then it goes into a storage and knowledge base, and then it goes back to the assistant, and it provides a result. In between the knowledge base and the assistant, you had the final results running in with the large language model, which calls out a function and runs the function, and then it returns back to the large language model to give that result back to the user. So how it works, step one, you create an assistant. Step two, you add the tools, which is the functions and the vector database and storage database. Step three is we're using Streamlit, Fast API, or Django. So I'm going to use Streamlit for this tutorial. So scrolling down the GitHub repo, it just shows you how to install it. So let's install this and we'll see if we can successfully run the code. So I have Visual Studio Code up and running. So ensure that you have VS Code installed on your computer. So my computer is about 4 years old with an upgraded RAM, about 64 gigs of RAM. I upgraded my my SSD to about 4 terabytes, running on 4 core CPUs. So it might be slow, but let's give this a shot. So going back to the repo. So in the repo, once you copy and paste this in your browser, click on the green button where it says code. I normally click on the copy URL to clipboard. You can do whatever fits your boat. You can either open it up with GitHub desktop. You can open it with VS Code, or you can download the zip file. You can also create code spaces for it, SSH, and you can also use the GitHub CLI. So we're going to use the copy URL to clipboard, go back into VS Code, and we're going to clone the repo. Paste the link onto the text box, press enter, and we're going to save it onto our documents. And once that's loaded, a little window will pop up. So forgive me and be patient with this video. I will probably transfer to another laptop that's more sufficient in processing system. Right, I see it moving. Move me out of the way, so we'll just watch over it. All right. So you got two options. You can either open it in the same VS Code window, or you can open it in a new window. So I normally open it in a new window. just because I don't want to interrupt with any other code or any other work I'm doing. And to create a virtual environment, let me just back up, close this out. So I normally, like I said, normally create a virtual environment. You do that by pressing Control-Shift-P onto your keyboard. All right. So depending on what you have, you can you would either have VNV, which is the Python environment, virtual environment, or Conda. That's Anaconda. So I usually either use both or one or the other, whatever works for me. So today we're going to be using VNV. Then we're going to install the Python 3.12 version. And then once that happens, or once you click on that, this drop-down box appears, which is the requirements. So I normally click that box to click all, then I click OK, and do the same thing. So this is for the cookbook. So as of right now, it's creating a virtual environment. And why you want to create a virtual environment is because it doesn't interrupt your operating system or VS Code. So if you mess anything up here, you can delete this entire file directory and reinstall it back again. And then just make sure you have a virtual environment set up. So as this is running, let's open up a new terminal. Let that load up. And there you go. So as you see here on my screen, we're in the terminal tab. My VS Code may be different from yours. I have about a few tabs here. You got the problems where you click on any of this folder here and you go into a file or a Python file. It will provide problems if it does have any issues. It give you an output, you can debug. I usually use Azure. I normally don't mess around with the ports, and then I do have a SQL database. I haven't played around with GitLens, but we'll see. But we'll just wait for this to install the virtual environment. So as we are waiting, let's go back to the GitHub repo, close this one out, scroll down to the installation, and I'm going to copy this, minimize that, wait for it to load up my virtual environment. In my experience, you can either do both in parallel. However, I found that it was pretty wonky on my end because I would do both at the same time. And then once the virtual environment was installed, I would have to reinstall the requirements again. So we're just going to wait until virtual environment is set up. Let's try and cancel this, see what happens. Okay, so let's do select Python interpreter. I normally click on the recommended. So the reason why I click on cancel is because sometimes with with my laptop, like I said, please bear with me. It's a very slow laptop, but we'll go from there. I normally click on the recommended Python environment or the Conda environment. From there, it will load up. I normally don't activate it because it normally does activate on its own. So let's go back, copy the pip install -u space PyData. So what we're going to do is right click that. And if you click right click on your mouse, it will automatically paste it onto your terminal. Press enter. So as it's installing, let's go back to the GitHub repo. So next we got to create an Assistant.py file. By copying this code right here. Go back into the VS Code, open up a new file. So what you're going to do now is click on the File tab, then click New Text File, paste the code into the new file, and then let me just close that out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have to save as. So click File, Save As. So make sure you save as in the PyData file. So what we're going to do is call this Assistant.py. So as you can see here, it created a new Python file with the code inside. So right now it's still installing the requirements. Let's go back to the GitHub repo. So what we're going to do next now is install the DuckDuckGo search since it's using DuckDuckGo. So we'll click on copy. And we'll install the libraries once that is done installing. Go back to GitHub repo. So you do have to input your OpenAI key. So make sure you do that. I'm not going to show my GitHub or my OpenAI key on this tutorial. All right, so that is done. So what we're going to do now is install DuckDuckGo. So right click on my mouse, which is pip install OpenAI DuckDuckGo search, press enter. Trying to move my camera out of the way for you guys to see. All right, so that is done installing the DuckDuckGo library. So what we're going to do now is export your OpenAI key. So since I'm on a Windows operating system, do not use export, use set. So we'll click on that. We'll paste it on. Try that again. So use set. So let's do that. So once you paste the OpenAI key, this is the first method. So you will click on enter. From there, it would actually upload your OpenAI key into the file directory. Also, the second method to import your OpenAI key is to use a new text file, and then type in OpenAI underscore API underscore key equals, and we'll just put the apostrophe on here. And then what you're going to do is save as. Make sure you are on the PyData file directory. And what you're going to do now is type in .env and then press enter. So what that is going to do is import your OpenAI key. So I'm going to stop the video and import my OpenAI key and come back after I do so.